man sitting near us said, "You can't be his mother. Why would you be sitting here in the upper deck?" My mom, ever the generous person, had given the better tickets we got from Frank down in the field level boxes to some friends. I felt enormous pride as I watched my brother run around the bases. I got choked up also. I couldn't wait to go back to my neighborhood in Brooklyn and talk to all those Dodger fans about my brother and his clutch World Series home run. After the game, which Milwaukee won in 10 innings, I went into the Braves clubhouse. The players were jubilant. As for me, I spent just about all my time in that exuberant clubhouse trying to be as inconspicuous as possible. I was a timid kid, and I kept my mouth shut, hanging close to my brother's locker. My eyes were wide open, though. I'll never forget how I felt in that Braves clubhouse after a World Series win. That's when the World Series became my dream. I fell asleep that night dreaming about it. I was a pretty good sandlot player at the time, but I knew I had many, many miles to travel to get from where I was to where Frank was playing. Dreaming about getting to the World Series was probably the same as dreaming about becoming President of the United States. It seemed so far, far away. You had to be blessed enough and lucky enough to get there. But I was having a hell of a time living my dream through my brother. Early the next morning, Mom appeared on the Today Show. Frank had to get up really early to accompany her on that trip to the Milwaukee TV studio. I guess my mom must have been a little nervous because when they asked her who her favorite ball player was, she didn't say Frank. She said Gil Hodges of the Dodgers. The Braves won again that day, 1-0, behind Lou Burdett's pitching. It was his second complete game win over the Yankees, and it gave Milwaukee a 3-2 lead in the series. The series then returned to Yankee Stadium for Game 6. Yankee Stadium was a museum to me, a museum of baseball. When I walked in, I thought about all those great teams and players who had played there. The knowledge of all the people who had walked there before me was humbling. In the 5th inning, with the Braves losing 2-0, Frank tagged a pitch from Bob Turley. The ball sailed into the bleachers. Frank had another home run. I felt like running all the way home right then and there to Avenue T to tell my friends about it. The Yankees won that game 3-2, bringing the 1957 World Series to a 7th game. Warren Spahn was supposed to start that final game, but was sidelined by the flu. So Fred Haney, the Braves manager, gave the ball to Burdett, asking him to pitch on only 2 days' rest. Burdett pitched one of the greatest games in World Series history in Game 7, shutting out the Yankees 5-0 in the deciding game. My brother was a world champion, and he had the ring to prove it. It was one of the most beautiful things I had ever seen. Amazingly, Frank and the Braves made it back to the World Series against the Yankees in 1958. Milwaukee took a 3-1 lead in that series, but the Yankees won Game 5 in New York and then the last 2 games in Milwaukee to win the World Championship. Every player, manager, coach, trainer, and executive who gets to the World Series gets a ring. The winner's ring say World Champions. The loser's ring say League Champions. Frank decided to turn his '58 ring into a pendant for my mom. But my mom never wore jewelry, so it sat on her dresser for a while. After a couple of months, I asked her if I could have it. She said, sure. I brought it to a jeweler and had it turned into a ring. I wore that ring for several years, including during the early part of my playing career in the big leagues. My teammates and other people would see this big World Series ring and ask, where'd you get that? I got tired of having to explain that I hadn't earned it, my brother had, so I finally just put the ring in a small jewelry pouch and left it there. Then one day in 1972, I reached into that pouch for a pair of cufflinks. The ring was gone. I figured someone had stolen the ring while I had been in a New York hotel 3 or 4 days before that. I was there for the players' ratification vote concluding the 1972 players' strike. From the day I lost the ring, Frank would tell me, you've got to replace that ring. That was his way of telling me that eventually my dream would come true, that I was going to get to the World Series. Though I doubted it many times, my brother turned out to be right. At 10:56 on the night of October 26, 1996, I rushed out from the dugout to the field at Yankee Stadium, a World Series champion. 39 years after I watched Frank hit those 2 World Series home runs, the same 2 clubs, the Yankees and the Braves, had staged another